and I have a video for you today. It's kind of like basically you'll see. So, oh, you can't. Okay. I finally solved the paradox that split physicists. Bell's spaceship paradox. Float head physics. Anytime someone has something like this, I want to put my 2 cents in on it. Um, Most of the time, the reason why it's because they got it wrong, or they're stupid, or something that I need to call out. So I'm gonna call it out. So anyone's calling you out. Here you go.
Two identical spaceships are connected by a delicate string. They start accelerating the
Hold on.
spaceship. Two identical
Okay.
spaceships are connected by a delicate string. They start accelerating very close to the speed of light at exactly the same time. And
Okay. First off, you can't go as fast as the speed of light. Um, the reason why is because light is energy, and you can't push energy as fast as energy. You just send it. That's it. If you observe it, just the act of observing light slows it down. Because it doesn't actually slow down, it just appears that way. That's where your failed concept of time comes from. And why you believe in that bullshit is because you think that what you're seeing is what is reality. But you don't realize that you're dumb. And what you see is in your mind, not in reality. So, anyways, continue.
at exactly the same rate. The question is, as they accelerate, will the string stay intact or will it eventually snap? This
Will it stay intact or will it snap? Well, it will stay intact if they go the exact same, right? And it can be a hefty string. It can be a chain, even. They're gonna break. Spaceships are pretty fucking heavy, my guy. Like, come on now.
puzzle is so counterintuitive that in the 80s, even the top physicists couldn't agree on what the right answer was.
That's because their underlying reasons are different. They believe something because they believe something else. But that's why I exist. Because when I was younger, I used to do this thing called going for the throat. Right? I would play Warcraft, and I would build in a way where if you were greedy and you built more for economy and for tier 2 and phase 2 or whatever, I would kill you with basic units because I would overrun you. You had to scout me in order to survive. And most people didn't scout, so they lost. That's what it was. That's what this is. You're making the same mistake. You're all in. You have no idea what is out there, and you have a belief based off of bullshit, and you're assuming you're right even though you're wrong. So, anyways,
And in fact, even the person who got it right turns out that he got it right for the wrong reasons.
right. And people who got it wrong for the wrong reasons.
And that's why, even today, some of the most popular videos on YouTube on this topic still miss what's actually going on.
Do you notice that? That's a language barrier.
some of the most popular videos on
Videos. Instead of videos, videos. It's a language thing. They can't say V. They say B. Instead of V, they say B.
YouTube on this topic still miss what's actually going on.
So he said on yesterday's videos, but he's trained himself so that he can't be famous.
But I think I've finally cracked it.
I don't literally mean videos, by the way. Just giving you that. Anyways, I'm just giving you the idea through hearing alone, and there's no visual anything to, example. Anyways,
And the reason I'm sharing this video is not just because the real solution is
you think okay? Hold on, let's start over. He thinks he's figured it out.
I finally cracked it. And the reason
You're a dumbass. You didn't figure shit out.
I'm sharing this video is not just because the real solution is truly elegant, but because of its far-reaching consequences. It led me to eventually think about black holes in a way that I had never before, the way physicists actually do. And it eventually pushed me into rediscovering Penrose diagrams from scratch. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the puzzle. If both ships
For the record, Pendrose diagram is spoiled child. I don't know what it is, but it's what happens when somebody has a good thing and that's all they have is a good thing. So they ruin it because they're trying to make it into something else. Because you need to have good and bad in order to be happy. So when people only have good and good, then they create the bad. See what I'm saying? Anyways, I can explain it, but not for today.
accelerate together at the same rate, their separation should stay the same, right?
Right.
And if the separation between them stays the same, the string is never pulled. So it should just stay intact. So
Right.
why on earth would it ever snap?
Because time you slow down, or the faster you go, the slower you go. So time, this one's faster ahead of the other one, so it should slow down first, or some bullshit, right?
Well, remember when you go close to speed of light, Einstein's relativity starts kicking in. One famous prediction of relativity is that moving objects are shorter in the direction of motion compared to when they are at rest.
That's not true. They perceive that way.
This is called length contraction.
That isn't true. That's just a theory that you dumbasses thought was real, much like time. You think time is real, but it isn't.
Now, since everyday speeds are much, 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 much slower than that of light, which, whose speed we usually choose to be 1 in relativity, we just don't notice this effect at all. But of course, close to speed of light, it's huge. For example, if the ship was traveling at, say, 87% the speed of light, then its moving length would be half when it's at rest. This means as the ships and the string speed up, they tend to shrink. So the big question is, what does that do to the string? How does length contraction affect the outcome of the puzzle?
Right.
In the 80s,
And the thing is, we only have theories, and that's where you spoiled idiots ran off and ruined it, is in the theory. Because that's all you had. Whereas if you had a day job or something else to hold your feet to the fire, you wouldn't have created such a fucking reckless abandonment, basically. Like to ruin society or to ruin the world or to ruin the concepts that were born, basically. Like we wouldn't have a lot of technology that we have today because of people like you. Like I remember when I was younger, there was an example put before me, and it was there's a space in front of you that's 1 meter long. Okay, you go 50% of its width every second. So you will never cross the width of um that hole because you're going 50% of the distance every second. So the next second you go 50%. Next second you go 50%. So it was 1, then it's point 0.5, then it's 0.25, and it doesn't work. You eventually, it's just you're stuck over the hole and you can never proceed. That's you guys. But in reality, it's you screwed up, and people who are smart and can make sense out of it, you're going at um, what's it called, zero point 0.5 meters a second, so it would take you 2 seconds to cover a meter. That's it. That's how it ends. But your little example creates these rules that don't make sense, and that's what's going on here with light and this paradox. You're creating a set of rules that they can't answer because it must follow these stupid ideas that you have created and set forward. But again, someone smart or with an aptitude for reality comes along and is like, what the fuck are you talking about? That makes no sense.
Physicist John Bell, yes, the same John Bell of the Bell's theorem who disproved Einstein's hidden variable assumptions of quantum mechanics, he argued that the string must snap. He says, look, Mahesh, since the ships start accelerating at the same time, the distance between the ships should always stay the same. But of course, the ships and the string contract. However, since the string is tied at the ends, it can't freely contract. So stress starts building up. And as a result, it eventually snaps.
Where's that? Where is um that it's shrinking? So where is that width going? What I mean is, this ship can shrink down. This ship can shrink up. And they both equal out. So there's no stress brought onto the string. Right? Again, it's a fact uh, that shows your example is bullshit.
But many of his colleagues at CERN disagreed. He says, and I quote, a distinguished experimental physicist refused to accept that the thread would break and regarded my assertion that indeed it would as a personal misinterpretation of special relativity. But what was their argument against it? Well, they argued that if the whole system is accelerating together, why wouldn't the whole system contract together? Then look, there will be no stress in the string, and so it wouldn't snap. And remember, motion is relative. So, from the ship's perspective, they're always at rest relative to each other. So, there is no wing contraction between them at all. It's the rest of the universe that's moving backwards and contracting. So,
Right.
again, no stress on that string, and it stays intact. Which means this reasoning seems consistent in all frames.
If that string snapped, for example, then the ship would implode. You understand? Because the shrinking goes somewhere. The matter goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear and then reappear, which, again, your perception does, basically. You think it's going away. You think the ball is disappeared when I put it behind my hand, but in reality, it's right there. You know what I'm saying? Like you think that it is. You think that it isn't. You think you. That's what it comes down to. Is you think, you think, you think, but in reality, fuck you. You know, like nothing you're talking about. Go feed a kid, you fucking bastard. There's homeless people. Fix that. Stop trying to worry about if a string breaks. The fuck?
And so for me, this reasoning sounds super intuitive. And I'm guessing the
Again, the problem is people like you have nothing better to do, so you worry about a string and a theory. If you instead put that energy onto helping a homeless bum, you might change somebody's life. But instead, you'd rather talk about a string that people can't even fucking agree with. That's so dumb. Anyways, that's it. People will be happy. You know what? Fuck it. Continue.
the same is true
Fuck
for
it.
most of you. About 60% of you answered that the string wouldn't snap in the community poll. But what's the consensus? Well, again, Bell says
And for the record, that's how America works. That's what the voters say. That's what the people who took your poll said. But that's not what people believe. You understand? There's a difference. The people is not the same as your poll. Your poll is a part of the people. At best, it's a part of the people, but it's not the people.
we decided to appeal to the CERN Theory Division for Arbitration and made a not very systematic canvas of opinion in it. There emerged a clear consensus that the thread would not break. So that's it. End of story. This is the correct answer, and Bell is wrong, right? Well, Bell was actually pretty convinced that he was right. And so he popularized this puzzle by writing a chapter in his book called How to Teach Special Relativity. In there, he explained in excruciating detail, down to the level of atoms and electromagnetic fields, why the string should snap. And today, the consensus is that Bell was right. The string indeed snaps. That's why we call this today as the Bell's spaceship paradox.
Problem. If that string snaps, then why doesn't the ship explode? Because it's the same thing. Like that string connecting the two ships, what's to stopping it from being the same ship at that point? You understand? So if that string snapped, then the ship should blow up or it should crush or snap or something as well. Because that string is essentially a dictation that it's the same ship. Like that's what it is. It's basically a replication of that. It's a string, again, to you as apes or dogs looking at it, you see the string as something else. That's because you're stupid. But again, to somebody who is smart, we can see how this string would basically be okay. If they're connected, then what's stopping, what's it called? A ship A and B, what's stopping the whole thing from being connected? And if that's the case, if the whole thing's connected, or then why doesn't the ship snap? You know what I'm saying? Basically, so
But why? Why does length contraction work this way and not this way? And what does it look like from the perspective of the people inside the ship? And most importantly, how can we figure this all out ourselves?
to the people in the ship and to us as people watching the ship, the two don't change, you idiot.
Well, at first I thought I should look at Bell's original argument, but like I said, it's way too technical. It defeats the purpose of gaining some intuition. A
Hmm, that's kind of my theory. Essentially, I like learning about a lot of stuff to get an idea, but I don't want the language. You know what I'm saying? I want an idea of what you're talking about, and I want to look at it. Oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. Cool. But I don't want to know. Oh, it's going 55.7 miles per hour, and it's only because like I don't care about the details. It's a ship and it's flying. What is this word flying? Oh, it just means that it's not falling, or it means it's in the air or something along those lines. And then so it's like, yeah, I get the idea. You know what I'm saying?
Breakthrough came for me when I went through the book Relativity Visualized by Louis Epstein. Oh my god, that totally blew my mind.
Is he related to Jeffrey Epstein?
So, Epstein, why does link contraction work this way and not this way? And Epstein says, Mahesh, what exactly is link contraction according to you? Well, moving things are shorter compared to when they're at rest. And Epstein says, no, they're not. That's a misconception. I'm like,
Right.
what? Look at this pen. This is how long it looks right now. But what if I rotate it? It looks shorter. Not because it actually got shorter. The pen did not get shorter. It just looks shorter because now you're looking at it from an angle.
Your perception changed, Mesh. Your perception.
So when you're looking at this pen directly, the length that you measure is exactly the same as its true length. But watch what happens as the pen rotates. The measured length gets shorter.
Measured length, true length, like, that's stupid. You understand that, right? There's no such thing as true length. That all that's representing is what's it called? This is how long it is, and this is how long we think it is. That's what you should label, not true length, measured length. Those words don't matter. But putting them in the way I said them, suddenly the words matter. You understand? True length, that's how long it actually is. Measured length, that's how long I think it is. Makes sense. True length, measured length doesn't make sense. Keep it simple, you fucking ape.
Not because the pen actually got shorter, it didn't, its true length is still the same, but because you're now measuring it from an angle. It's all about geometry. So the key lesson over here is that we were never measuring the pencil's length in the first place. All we are measuring is its projection onto our axis.
Right. Your perception.
That's why this is also called the coordinate length.
No, it's projected length.
And the pencil's true length, we also call it the proper length.
No, it's just the pencil's length. That's it. It's just the pencil's length, and a coordinate length is, again, perception. That's all it is. What we think what is. That's the difference.
So look, the proper length didn't change. The pencil did not get shorter. It just rotated, and that's why the measured length got shorter. This is length contraction. This sounds incredibly amazing contraction.
This is too long. This little bit right here.
This
Like, why did you take that? It's stupid.
sounds incredibly amazing. But Epstein, there's a problem. Our space shuttle is not rotating. It's accelerating, right? So how do you explain what's going on over here?
Yeah, I'm actually curious. Will he actually nail this, or will he get it wrong?
And Epstein says, but Mahesh, acceleration is rotation. Not in space, but in space time. When a
So he created a explanation to explain himself that bends the rules that we live by. It's so dumb.
spaceship is at rest in space, it's still moving through its own time, its proper time. And this speed with which it moves through space time is the speed of light. In fact, everything in this
Time isn't real, dude. What the do you understand? You're not allowed to use the word as the definition.
universe, including you, me, donkeys, we all move through space time at only one speed, the speed of light. It's just
No, we don't. I don't move through the speed or through whatever through the speed of light. I move the speed of me through ninja on a ninja. I'm not going as fast as light. What the fuck are you talking about?
that when we are at rest, all of that speed is directed through time. That's why the spatial velocity is zero and our time ticks at full speed. But what happens when this space shuttle accelerates? Well,
So how would I go from traveling at the speed of light to traveling at the speed of light? Well, your example didn't break down at all.
As it accelerates, the speed through space-time cannot change. It should still be the same, but the direction does. The velocity vector tilts, and as a result, its spatial velocity increases.
That is so stupid. That is so stupid.
So look, acceleration is rotation in space-time.
Yeah, to you crazy apes.
And that's why when the spaceship is at rest,
Nothing will be invented because of you. How does that feel? As amazing and as many awards and as many as blah 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 whatever, nothing will ever come from what you're talking about because it's not real.
you measure its length head on. So the measured length equals its proper length. But when it's moving, look, the length you measure becomes shorter than the proper length.
Nope, it's all perception, buddy. Smoke and mirrors. It's magic. You're being enveloped by the trick. Good job.
Not because the ship physically shrank, not because it got shorter, but because it rotated. This is length contraction. So the faster it moves, the more it rotates and more the length contracts.
Yeah. Yep. Cool.
This is insane. So length contraction is not that moving things are getting shorter. No. Instead, it's just that moving things are rotated in space-time, and so we're just measuring it from an angle. It's an
It's so stupid.
artifact of measuring something from an angle. That's
You're
amazing.
so stupid.
But wait, I am not fully sold yet. Epstein, does the math work out over here?
There's no math because it's not real.
Turns out
Time isn't real.
it actually works out beautifully.
That's what the thing is. This is why I call it putting the cart before the horse, because you made sense of it in math. You assume it makes sense in reality, and you assume that it works that way. This is why we have imaginary numbers and whatever you want to call it, because they're not real. And you guys took something that isn't real and are treating it like it's real, hence putting the cart before the horse. What the fuck is wrong with you, Mesh?
See, all we need to do is now find a connection between its true length and the measured length, right? How do we do
Shipping.
that? Well, just complete the triangles. And look, these two triangles are now similar. So we can say the measured length divided by the true length should equal this side divided by this side. Now we usually take the speed of light to be 1 in relativity, so let's call that 1. Then what exactly is this side? Well, from Pythagoras, we can say that is the square root of 1 minus v square. And so that's where that root of 1 minus v square comes in, the length contraction formula. Isn't it amazing? We just derived it in a few steps, and isn't this so elegant?
Nope.
The math works out.
Cool.
Wow.
You know.
But wait, I'm still not convinced yet. I have one last critique, okay? When the pencil rotates, look, in the horizontal, its length contracts, but the vertical length increases, right? So shouldn't the same thing happen to our space shuttle? As it rotates, the spatial length contracted, but shouldn't the temporal length increase? What does this temporal length signify? Epstein says, well, in the ship's frame, two perfectly synced clocks stay in sync even as the ship accelerates.
Right?
So the temporal distance
Hence my point. If it was one ship, this would be true. But for some reason, being connected by a string allows it to be two ships. Well, what if you made it to where it's completely one ship? And it's just you took it and it's a long ship. Then this is true all of a sudden? Like, come on, dude, what the fuck?
between the clocks in the ship's frame is 0. But in our frame, they go out of sync. The clock at the back will be ahead in proper time compared to the
That's exactly why the string wouldn't break.
clock at the front. The temporal length equals how much the clocks are out of sync. So look, as the ship accelerates, the spatial length decreases, but the clocks go more and more out of sync, so indeed the temporal length increases. Another way to out the spatial length decreases, but the clocks go more and more out of sync.
Right. Why?
So indeed,
Hold on, we're gonna go back. Because apparently we missed a step. Because here, they're in sync, but he's justifying them going out of sync. So here the string hasn't broken, but then all of a sudden he says, so that's why it's okay that the string broke. It's like, huh?
as the ship accelerates. So the temporal distance between the clocks in the ship's frame is 0. But in our frame, they go out of sync. The clock at the back will be ahead in proper time compared to the clock at the front. The
Okay. According to us, right? That's the difference, guys. I knew it. That's the difference because of us. And that, so that's we decide if the string breaks or not based on our assumption. If we know or don't. If we know the string's there, then it breaks. But if we have no idea that it's there, then it doesn't break. Again, the simple act of measuring it counts. That's why we can't go as fast as light, because light is the matter, right? We can we can measure light from point A to point B, but we can't measure light from point A until point B. We can only measure it by how long it took to get somewhere. We can't measure it by how fast it's going. We can't do what cops do, for example. Um, what's it called? They use radar to see how fast you're going because, um, if you don't know, a little light comes out of the gun and hits the car. Fortunately, the car weighs like more than 10 pounds, so when the light hits, it doesn't do anything. But if it was a single particle, it would do something. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference.
temporal length equals how much the clocks are out of sync. So look, as the ship accelerates, the spatial length decreases, but the clocks go more and more out of sync, so indeed the temporal length increases.
According to us, not according to the people on the ship. It's okay for 2 plus 2 to be 4 here and 2 plus 2 to be 5 there. That's okay because we're not on the ship and they are. Like, it's so stupid.
Another way to think about this is that in the ship's frame, 1 second in the front is simultaneous with 1 second at the back. But in
Right. That's exactly what the ship um, wouldn't, the string rather, wouldn't break.
our frame, 1 second in the front of the ship is simultaneous with 2 seconds in the back. So this
What we perceive.
shows that simultaneity is relative. That's amazing. We know that is to be true, but now we can see it in another way. That's
You're fucking stupid, dude. And anyone who believes this shit is fucking stupid, and you're being let off a cliff.
amazing. But now this brings up the biggest problem with Bell's original explanation. Bell says as the string and the ships accelerate, they try to contract. However, the string's ends are tied, therefore it can't contract, and that produces the stress, and that snaps the string.
That's so stupid.
But we just saw length contraction is just an artifact of measuring something from an angle. It's just geometry. So it cannot cause stress. And that's what makes this puzzle so puzzling. Bell's original explanation is wrong. I mean, just
Was that a kid in the background?
cannot cause stress. And that's what makes this puzzle so puzzling. Bell's original explanation is
Yeah.
wrong. And that's what makes this puzzle so puzzling. Bell's original explanation is wrong. I mean, just to be clear that we are on the same page, the string does snap. There is stress. That part is true. But saying that length contraction causes the string to snap, that is wrong, in my opinion, because length contraction is just geometry, nothing more. And that's why I think even the most popular explanations on YouTube today about this topic is misleading, because they too, like Bell, attribute that stress to length contraction in our frame. So if length contraction is not
I'm gonna be honest. What he's saying is not making sense. Like playing to what, to where, to why, who, where. Like you're just saying things, and you're stupid, right? That's why it makes sense to you, because you're not questioning it. You are an example of a free nation voting its rights away because you are just agreeing and saying things because they make you feel good. You're not actually making sense, kid.
the cause for this stress, what is actually generating it? What truly makes the string snap?
How,
What is actually generating it?
how are they the same and then not the same and then the same and then not the same? Like, make up your fucking mind.
What
Go back.
practice
We'll go
topic
back.
that is that does snap? That's what is the it can't contract, and that produces the stress, and that snaps the string. Contract. Bell says as the string and the ships accelerate, they try to contract. However, the string's ends are tied, therefore it can't contract, and that produces the stress, and that snaps the string.
But you just said that is. Okay, hold on.
Bell says as the string and the ships accelerate, they try to contract. However, the string's ends are tied, therefore it can't contract, and that produces the stress, and that snaps the string.
But you just said that they don't contract. They just. You're basically saying what I'm trying to tell you to say, that they look like it. You're basically saying they look like they are, but they're not actually.
True, but now we can see it in another way. That's amazing.
No.
But now this brings up the biggest problem with Bell's original explanation. Bell says as the string and the ships accelerate, they try to contract.
As they go faster, they try to shrink. But here's the thing, the string is attached. They are one. I'm having trouble breaking this down because I'm not stupid. This is why I have trouble in League of Legends, because I'm not stupid.
However, the string's ends are tied, therefore it can't contract, and that produces the stress, and that snaps the
That makes no sense.
string.
We're just gonna move on.
But we just saw length contraction is just an artifact of measuring something from an angle. It's just geometry. So it cannot cause stress. And that's what makes this puzzle so puzzling. Bell's original explanation
There's that scream again.
is wrong. I mean, just to be clear that we are on the same page, the string does snap. There is stress. That part is true.
What? Why? Why?
But saying that length contraction causes the string to snap, that is wrong in my opinion. Because length
Why?
contraction is just geometry, nothing more.
What does that mean? God damn it. 1 second. Exit. Clicked.
And that's why I think even the most popular explanations on YouTube today about this topic is misleading, because they too, like Bell, attribute that stress to length contraction in our frame. So if length contraction is not the cause for this stress, what is actually generating it? What truly makes the string snap?
Well,
And
yes.
Epstein says the answer
What does a crazy man like yourself think that the answer is? That's the question.
has been in front of us all along.
No, it hasn't.
It's acceleration. But how? I mean, both the ships are accelerating at exactly the same rate. How does that produce stress in the string?
According to you, it makes. Or according to what you said, I can visualize it. It makes sense. I don't understand why you're confused.
It's kind of like how trying to accelerate your learning can sometimes produce stress unless you're using Brilliant, the sponsor of Twitch video for use for a full 20%. Now, accelerating it, get back to the video. So again, if both the ends of the
Being a sellout in a lesson, that I would never do what you just did. That's fucked up. That just shows you why he accepts this explanation, because he's a sellout, just like Trump. He sold out to the big man. This is the problem. It's because people sell out, like Trump. Because you're willing to pay me. That's why the system right now is pay to win. That's why the system sucks. Sports suck. Because whoever has the biggest wallet has the biggest trophy, essentially, right now. Doesn't matter about if you're actually good or not. What matters is that they win. And they've made it to where their kids win and whatnot. Even though you lost or you won and they lost, they get the trophy, right? It's my dad owns a dealership mentality. That's what it is, pay to win.
string are accelerating at exactly the same rate.
You're a sellout, you're a snake. I hate you, dude. I hate you. That was evil.
How exactly does that produce stress in the string? And Epstein says, Mahesh, for a moment, forget about both the shuttles. Just consider a single space shuttle accelerating very close to the speed of light.
Yes, a single space shuttle. Because that's how nature works. When you look at a space shuttle, all nature sees is a space shuttle. There's no chemicals, there's no atoms, no individuality amongst any of them. All of these things happen at once. Each one doesn't have its own existence. It's all just one simple thing. It's all because you're an idiot.
His question is, if we were to keep a couple of accelerometers, remember an accelerometer measures acceleration using a physical effect, like a spring compressing. The greater the acceleration, the more the spring compresses.
Good for you.
So if you place one at the back and one at the front, will they read the same value or
This is dumb. So now all you're doing now is equating for velocity. That has nothing to do with anything.
different values? Well, my instinct says since the whole ship is accelerating together, they should read the same value. Both of the accelerations must be exactly the same. The whole ship should have the same acceleration value. But if we remember that acceleration is rotation in four-dimensional space-time,
Space-time doesn't exist. Remember that.
and remember that when something rotates, like a door, the outer edge moves faster than the inner one, right?
No.
So the same thing must happen here. The behind should be moving faster than the front. So the back of the ship should at any given moment have a higher speed compared to the front of the ship, which means the back of the ship should gain velocity quicker than the front, which means
For the record, that's the same speed. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4. And they're going up by one goes up by one, goes up by one, goes up by one. This, again, is you being an idiot. If anything, it would make sense to say 1, 2, 2, 3.5, 3, 5. Then I would believe that the back's speeding up. But as is, they're going the exact same speed the whole way through because you're a fucking idiot. That's why you believe all this bullshit.
The back of the ship should have a higher acceleration compared to the front.
Nope. You're an idiot.
Oh, wait, that doesn't sound right. So let's think a little bit about this.
Yeah. It doesn't sound right. When I go, the back of the ship goes first.
At any given moment, the back of the ship is having more speed compared to the front of the ship. And that explains why the measured length contracts. So that makes sense.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, yes, the math checks out, but the logic doesn't.
But
that math, by the way, and the logic was they would put different numbers into the system, and then those would make sense, but more sense than these, right? Because there is common sense, and then there is true common sense. Stupid.
I'm thinking if the back of the ship is literally moving faster than the front,
It's not.
shouldn't the ship literally shrink? Like, shouldn't it physically shrink? Why doesn't that happen?
I got a bridge I want to sell you. I'll sell it to you for $1 million, dude. The Bay Bridge. I own that shit. I'll sell it to you. $1 billion right now. It's yours.
Well, that's because remember, what's simultaneous for us is not simultaneous for them. Now, for us, at any given moment, the back of the ship is moving
He is why Trump won.
faster than the front. But if
Because people are easily swayed by bullshit because it's pretty.
I consider a particular moment in their frame, look, the back and the front have the same velocity. Again, if I consider a particular moment in their frame, the back has the same velocity as the front.
The problem is the front has the same as the back as well, the whole way through. So what you're saying is equally true by the other side, which it should be if one side is swinging faster than the other.
Oh my god, this is so wild.
Not really.
So, for a ship to maintain its rigidity as it accelerates, the back should indeed have a higher acceleration
No.
compared to the front.
No.
This is so counterintuitive.
Right. Because generally speaking, intuition makes sense. When you pick up a gun, it feels that way because it's built to your hand. Your hand isn't built to it.
Of course, it makes sense if you think about acceleration as rotations, but still, man. Okay, so the now obvious question could be, what if the back and the front had exactly the same acceleration? What would happen now? Well, now, at any given moment in our frame, the front and the back would have the same speed. That means the measured length would remain the same. It wouldn't contract. But how can that be? How can the measured length stay the same while the shuttle is rotating in space-time? It cannot unless the shuttle physically stretches as it rotates. Oh my god. Now we see the full picture.
You are like a child to believe that you can stretch. So dumb, dude. Ugh.
If the front of the ship has a smaller acceleration compared to the back, we might expect the ship to physically shrink, but it doesn't. Its proper length stays the same. Of course,
Again, proper length is just a bullshit term by an idiot.
measured length gets shorter, but that's just an artifact of the whole thing rotating. So there will be no stresses, there will be no shrinking, none of that is happening. In contrast, if the front and the back of the ship had the same acceleration, then we might expect the proper length of the ship to stay put, but it doesn't. In fact, the proper length increases and there will now be stresses generated inside. Of course, the measured length stays the same because as the ship is rotating, it's also stretching. Oh my god. This is what's going on. So
You're such a fucking idiot.
this is the true key to the puzzle.
This is poison for a brain.
So, moment of truth, folks. Now that we understand exactly how acceleration works in space time, can you pause the video and solve the Bell's spaceship paradox once and for all? Pause and bring it home.
No.
Give it a try.
No. This is stupid.
All right, here we go. Since both the ships start accelerating at exactly the same rate and exactly the same time, the ends of the string have the same acceleration. Therefore, the proper length of the string and the proper distance between the ships increase. This is what's truly happening.
Why? Because the ship is fine, but the reality doesn't know it's a ship. It's just we put a bunch of atoms together to form a ship. The ship is a billion strings. A zillion, trillion, billion, zillion, killion strings, essentially. A string is the same fucking thing, right? They're both the exact same thing. So why is one stretching and one is not? It's because you're an idiot. That's
And
why.
remember, this statement that we have made is an absolute fact.
No, it isn't. The proper length is just saying the length. The actual length, right? Here's the length of this, okay? Now, here's the thing. We take a ruler, okay, 6 inches. That's the measured length. You understand? We know it's 6 inches because I told you that's what it was. We verified it by using what is it called? A ruler, right? According to the ruler, it's 6 inches, right? So that's what we would put. According to the ruler, it's 6 inches. Essentially, that's what. I got hair in my mouth. There you go. Okay. There's the hair in my mouth. Anyways, that's.
We're not talking about measured lengths which are dependent on reference frames anymore. We are talking about proper length and proper distances, which is an objective fact that everybody agrees on. So this is truly what's going on.
No, I don't agree with your bullshit, stupidity, basically. A ship is a ship. A string is a string. Why the string is affected and the ship isn't is because you're an idiot and you accepted those terms. That's because you're dumb. I wouldn't depend on you to file my taxes, for example, because you're an idiot. You have proven that today. Because you think that a ship that's carrying a fire extinguisher and humans and a chair and a desk and all this other stuff doesn't change, but the string holding this ship to that ship does. That is stupid as anyways.
And so as the string is being pulled, that produces the stress.
You're dumb. The whole ship should explode at that point.
But whoa, wait a second. One last question we could be having is, shouldn't the same thing happen to the space shuttle itself?
Right.
Even for the space shuttle, the accelerations are the same to begin with, probably. And so, shouldn't there also be stresses generated inside?
Not inside, on the ship.
Yes, it happens, but we're assuming that the material that makes up the space shuttle is pretty strong and it can handle that stress. And so, look,
Yeah, that's what it is. It's because the rope is weak. That's why it broke. That makes sense. Ah, okay. That makes sense. It can handle it. No, no, it can't.
look, as the stress pulls on the ends, the acceleration of the front will decrease slightly and the acceleration of the back will increase slightly. Eventually, the ship settles into the correct acceleration gradient needed. And when that happens,
So why did that happen to the string? Because the string's attached to the ships. Again, you're trying to differentiate the two. Why doesn't that happen for the string? Oh, because the string's not powering it, but it's attached to the ship. The wing on the ship isn't powering it. Your example doesn't make sense.
the stress stops further increasing. And from now onwards, the
The ship stops, or the stress stops. Last time I checked, when you're on a car, or in a car rather, and you're traveling, the wind resistance stays there. The traction stays there. There's always something on the car. The stress exists and doesn't go away. That's why the string broke, because initially it should be strong enough, right? If it's holding them together, it should be strong enough. But because it broke, it's clearly not strong enough. Well, that should be true for the airships too.
ship maintains its proper
So
length
stupid.
and continues accelerating rigidly. But of course, we're assuming the string to be quite
And the people, they're fine. The fire extinguisher, it's fine. Like this logic doesn't follow. So you're an idiot.
delicate because it's a string. So it won't
Yeah, and what's it called when I jump off of what's it called when I jump off a building and I go parachuting, uh, when I'm lifting something, I can't use a string because the string's delicate. You're dumb.
be able to handle that stress,
You're
and
dumb.
that's why it snaps.
That paper cup inside the spaceship, it's fine. What's called the water droplet that's sitting there, that's fine too. Everything can handle it. It's just for some reason that string, it's made out of paper mache or rabbits or something. You're stupid, dude.
But of course, what would we measure in our frame?
You're stupid.
Well, as the ships and the string accelerate, the proper length and the proper distance is increasing.
There is no proper. Stop it.
Remember, that's an objective fact.
No, it's not. It's an objective. What's it called? You see that preference or perception rather. It's a factual perception. That's what your mind is thinking. When you look at 3D books, that 3D shape is actually there. It's not your mind playing tricks on you like philosophers of yesteryear used to say. Fucking stupid.
But because it's also rotating as it stretches, look, the measured length stays the same.
You're stupid, dude.
And that's why this stress generated seems mysterious because we don't measure a change in the length, but its proper length is increasing. So the mystery disappears once we realize
No, you're dumb.
that the proper length and the proper distance between the ship has been increasing all this while.
You're dumb.
And so the string is
You're
literally
dumb.
being stretched. And that's why eventually the whole thing snaps.
You're dumb. Nope.
Paradox
Nope.
resolved.
Nope. Nope.
But now let's
And by the way, there is no paradox because there's no such thing as time.
take this to the next level. Ready? Suppose we have a bunch of ships at rest and we want them to start accelerating.
And by the way, they all can go the exact same way, but not the string that's holding them together. That string is different, that string is different, and that string is different. But that ship and that ship and that ship and that ship, same.
At the same time in such a way that the proper distance between them stays a constant. In other words, each ship should always see the others at rest relative to itself. How should they all accelerate? Again, our instincts might suggest that they should all have the same acceleration, but now we know that's wrong. The ships in the front must have a smaller acceleration than the ships behind.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're in front, you're slower. That's yep. That makes sense. In races, the loser always wins.
But wait, if all of them are at rest relative to each other, could they tell whether they are accelerating in empty, flat spacetime or hovering near a black hole? No, because near a black hole, the situation is quite similar. The ship closer to the horizon must fire its engines harder than the ones farther away. So these two situations are pretty much identical.
What the fuck are you talking about, you crazy idiot?
That means we can use accelerated observers in flat space-time to model black holes. And when you do that, a beautiful space-time diagram emerges, one that lets us predict the true physics of black holes. And when you zoom out far enough, you discover the Penrose diagram.
No, you don't.
All of that in the next video.
Oh my god, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Anyways, I wanted to post that. I wanted the world to see that because he has 650,000 subscribers and he is poisoning all of them, all of their brains, all of their intuition, all of their thinking, all of their logic, everything. He's ruining it. He's killing it. I feel bad for kids that had him as a teacher. Oh my god, dude. Holy shit. Anyways, I'm out here. Be well, be happy, be safe, take care. Feed a homeless person and don't let the door hit you without spit you. And peace.